Chairman Tussler and members of the Assembly Committee on Judiciary, thank you for inviting me to testify on AB 320, which increases certain court fees and surcharges and indexes those amounts for inflation. I think we'd all recognize that a core responsibility of the government is to provide speedy trials for defendants and resolve civil matters in a timely manner. Unfortunately, between 2013 and 2024, there was a 60% increase in the average time for disposition of felonies. In 2013, we averaged 152 days. By 2024, that average had increased to 252 days. Why? District attorneys, public defenders, judges, and court clerks have all told me that the courts are backlogged in part due to being insufficiently resourced. This bill directly impacts or addresses the need for financial resources for the courts. It adjusts fees to account for inflation, indexes the fees for future inflation, and allows county courts to retain the additional revenue generated from the inflation-adjusted fees. First, the bill adjusts the court fees according to inflation. Court fees are a creature of state statute, and many have not been updated since the 1980s. In 1985, a Big Mac cost $1.35. The average used car was just over $5,000, and the court fee for support or maintenance petition was $10. Today, that same Big Mac costs $5.99. The car is $27,903, but the court fee is still $10. If the cost of the fee was fair in 1985, then using an inflation index calculator simply means that we are preserving its fairness with a universally applied mathematical adjustment. We had the Legislative Reference Bureau identify when each fee was first enacted or last updated. We used an inflation calculator and rounded to the nearest dollar to set the new fee as proposed in the bill. Secondly, the bill includes a review and update every 5 years. Obviously, this ensures that the court fees don't become outdated again. And also, by adjusting it every 5 years, we minimize the impact of a one-year spike in inflation. And thirdly, the county courts receive a greater share of the fees to operate the system. This is the rationale behind Assembly Amendment 1, which specifically calls out and directs that the additional funds via the court fees must fund court services. And I'm thankful to the State Bar for suggesting this amendment language. The funding for state programs will remain whole, so the amount of the fee that goes to the state will be the same. And the bill sends 100% of the increase in fees to the counties from which the fees originate to provide the resources needed for the counties to administer their court system. Since counties are bearing the financial burden, they should be the beneficiaries of the fees collected. Another part of the amendment was specifically requested by Milwaukee County due to a unique statutory responsibility to provide staffing for the prosecution of violent crimes. After Milwaukee County brought this to our attention, we determined that it was appropriate to adjust those fees to cover the cost of those statutory requirements. We've also added a couple other small claims court fees that were missed in our initial bill draft. Thank you to the work of Representative O'Connor's office. Our court needs more resources, and this bill provides that without increasing property taxes and without spending state funds. It is fair to those who are using the services that they should pay for those services. But it is also noteworthy that the extra fee revenue for the counties will not cover the total cost of court operations. So that means that state and local taxpayers are still subsidizing the courts. I feel compelled to also address what might be the objection to passing this important bill. Some might raise concerns about pricing individuals out of the justice system. what they prefer to call access to justice. This is a red herring. Not once in my many years as a legislator have I heard from a constituent that they wanted to go to court, but they could not due to the court fees. Not once. I have, on the other hand, heard from some people that they couldn't afford their attorney, but never the court fees. The average of all the fees that are adjusted in this bill, in aggregate, the average is $76. That's the new fee level. And the fees range from as little as $3 to $301, except for just two outliers. One at $462 is for mediation, the other at $832, or $830 rather, which is for a study for family custody placement, which, as you might imagine, is quite labor intensive. It is not the court fees that are keeping people from accessing justice. On June 11th, Mr. Chairman and committee members, I met with the State Bar, which is registered opposed to this bill. Despite repeated requests, they have not provided a single story of someone who was blocked from justice due to court fees, nor have they provided feedback on a single specific fee that they believe is too high. Instead, there is a nebulous, hypothetical fear that adjusting fees to support our courts will somehow prevent individuals from accessing justice. Furthermore, and this is really important, Wisconsin judges already have discretion to waive fees if they believe it would truly hinder an individual's ability to access justice. In other words, there is no real-life situation in which adjusting court fees would prevent access to justice. The debate over appropriateness of the fees and the amount of those fees occurred when the fees were first established in statute, in many cases over 40 years ago. In fact, I'll even go even further. If access to justice was a problem because of those fees, we've had over 20 legislative sessions to correct that issue. If the State Bar or others can provide specific feedback on specific fees for which an increase should not occur, we can consider that for a future amendment. The bottom line is accessing justice costs money. The bill properly resources the counties. More resources may assist in the administration of justice and may help reduce criminal disposition timeframes. The study suggests that reduced disposition times may improve the deterring effects of prosecution. The Sixth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and its call for speedy trial ought to compel us to pursue policies that will shorten the length of our court cases. A good first step is to support this bill and properly fund our courts. I want to call your attention to a chart that was passed out with my testimony that shows how the disposition timeframes have grown since 2013. Finally, I'd like to thank you for your time and invite any questions.